Go to the phones. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Sam. It's John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. How are you, sir? What's going on?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I want to continue our impeachment debate, and I know you're very passionate about the subject. Let's just remember our history. I was very happy to see you disagree with Nancy Pelosi on Hayes shows last week. I agree with you that people should be held accountable. You continued your comments on Ring of Fire over the weekend. You made the following comments. I actually believe there's an argument from a political standpoint. You don't want to impeach him. I think the strongest argument against impeaching the president is the full knowledge that there's simply no way the Senate will convict him when controlled by this many Republicans. And you only get one bite at the apple. And God forbid that Donald Trump gets reelected in 2020. You're still going to want an impeachment arrow in your quiver because otherwise you've already expended it. And if you've already impeached and the Senate has rejected it, Donald Trump is going to feel like he's completely no checks and balances on him because you basically unloaded the only metaphorical, of course, bullet in your chamber. And then you talked more about Pelosi, and then you went back to Donald Trump needs to be impeached. The Republicans are protecting him. Now is the time to do it because you can't get the job done, which is, very similar to what a lot of Democrats are saying. So we agree that primary voters should vote based on what they believe politically, not based on who has the most potential to win an election that'll be held in the distant future. But we don't agree with the political calculation of pursuing impeachment. The area that you emphasized was the fact that Republicans won't remove Trump from office. Your argument has held up well. Republicans are corrupt to the core. They probably won't remove Trump from office. Before I said that, if you need overwhelming evidence, they will impeach and remove him. But if you look at the people who have been indicted, most of the people have flipped on Trump. Everything relates to a percentage. And the odds are that you're right. But this goes beyond politics. I want to address the fact that one bite at the apple theory. Trump is a weak president. He just lost 40 seats in the House. You simply don't know if the impeachment process will be a political advantage for either party. I think it will help Democrats because it will expose Trump's genuine law-breaking, but I don't know for sure. But why should Trump get immunity just because he's created a cult in society where Republicans won't hold him accountable? You think of impeachment as a strictly political action, but it's also a matter of law enforcement because of the terrible office of legal counsel ruling that says sitting president cannot be indicted. The question is, should a sitting president get away with breaking the law? And the obvious answer is no. The LLC memo is wrong. Trump should have already been indicted, and people should be talking about this more. You say that you only get. Go ahead.
Well, no, I get you. I get your counter argument, but first off, I agree with you in terms of accountability, but I can tell you that he will not be held to account. We know this, right? I mean, this is from a look. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go forward with the impeachment process, okay? Or let me put it this way: I understand. I don't know that one can know about the value of the impeachment process politically on the race in 2020. I just don't know. It could go either way. I could be convinced by either argument. In terms of starting the impeachment process, I sort of feel like we already have, right? Like all of these oversight committee hearings, they're not formalizing the impeachment process, but they're all providing what would ultimately be articles of impeachment. I agree with you that he needs to be held to account, but there is no way he will be before the 2020 election. There is no way. And so my argument, the one argument that moves me is this, is that right now, if you make the analogy that that impeachment as a law enforcement mechanism, right? It's more political. It's not with the law enforcement, but it's is a law accountability mechanism. it's the equivalent of saying like, okay, 75% of our police force is out sick today. Today is not the day that we should go, perform that raid on the major drug cartel, because we could go in there and all our officers could get slaughtered and we will never get that drug cartel kingpin. That's the argument that I'm making, that if you actually impeach, right, like get to the point where there's a vote for impeachment and it goes to the Senate and the Senate rejects it, they do not convict, and Donald Trump gets reelected, forget about it. Like what won't Donald Trump do at that point?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you try impeachment and you bring information out in the public domain that wasn't available because of the research that you've done, you may actually prevent him from being elected in 2020.
You might.
Now, I'm not saying for
you
sure.
Might. You might.
No, I agree with you that you can't really know how it's going to play politically. You have to do this based on the law and the fact that he's already an unindicted co-conspirator, and if he wasn't the president, he would have already been indicted.
John,
so
I agree with you, but what about my case of this? Okay, we know the drug kingpin is a drug kingpin. We know that he runs a cartel. We also know that he has 100 armed men. You have 10. Do you go that day and try and raid him, or do you wait until you got more men?
But
as a law enforcement question, because I got news for you. The
right,
day he walks out of office is the day he gets indicted. Maybe there's a lag time.
Right. And that makes him more dangerous because, all of his authoritarian tendencies, just last week he was saying the military and the police supporters could get tough, and he's always lying about election fraud.
So, John, do you think
he's
that
doing all of it?
John, what do you think
he's doing?
What do you think the Democrats are going to find that is going to compel his supporters to say, yeah, maybe I shouldn't vote for him at this point? Like, honestly.
Well, I mean, you have a good case there, but I mean, there's also some independents. I think it's actually his chances of being elected are very, very thin now.
I agree.
As it is. And so, but I mean, you might have some independents that feel differently.
You might have a dynamic that happened with Bill Clinton. That Bill Clinton, who had very soft support on the left, a guy who got into the presidency with 45% of the vote, with the constant dogging of him around what I think most reasonable people would see as like small bore stuff, motivated some of his support.
Thanks for the impeachment.
Conceivable. It happened. It would happen in that it would motivate Trump voters. You and I can argue with that back and forth. We're not going to know the truth.
Trump voters would never buy into a persecution narrative.
Right, exactly. But
my voters don't believe in that.
Even if I stipulate that we that is an open question, what is not an open question is there is no way the Senate will convict him. You will not get that conviction. And so,
but that conviction isn't going to come in the second term, with the so-called second term, which you're saying we have to be ready for the second term. They're not going to have Democrats aren't going to have 67 votes in 2021 either. So how is that going to change? Whether they have 53 seats or 55 seats.
At least the threat is has some theoretically ability to mitigate his actions.
Well, I can tell you how Trump perceives the Democrats right now. He thinks they're weak and spineless for taking this tact. And that's the way a lot of people on the left do too, including AOC, Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. And they're right. They are weak. They're afraid of their own shadows. And there's no reason. I agree with you. We should be doing a lot more oversight and,
And I think that's coming.
That, I just think that the oversight and the possible impeachment should start happening, and it should.
It's happening.
It hasn't. Well, it's happening. It's slow. He's already the new Congress has already been in office for 2.5 months, and who have they brought up? They brought up.
You've got to
Cohen.
build, but John, you've got to hire a staff. It's not like there's like teams of Democratic investigators who have been waiting without taking any work anywhere, waiting for these committees to build up. Like you literally have to build a staff. It's not like people just waiting who are like lawyers who are going to be staffing and investigators that are just like on day one are going to be there. And you can't hire them until you start because you have no budget. I mean, it's only been 60 days. Not even. It's been 60 days. Not even 60 business days. So, I mean, I'm not defending the Democrats on this. I just think that it's like a little bit premature to say that there's no investigations happening. I mean, just the oversight committee with Cohen spurred investigations in New York City.
Right, and I hope Cy Vance, will put a place in his history marks by actually indicting Trump. I mean, he can do that,
yeah.
And he doesn't have to answer to Barr, and Barr's going to obstruct everything. I think you've given the right take on Barr, and it's sickening to see all these people that are saying, "Oh, Barr's going to stand up for the rule of law." He's going to do everything that is possible to obstruct this.
I agree with you, but
he's as corrupt as the rest of them.
But he's not going to be able to look. He's not going to be able to have control over the Southern District of New York. There's just no way. I just don't think so. I think it's just generally like they operate with a lot more independence than a lot of other But look, let's put a pin in this conversation and let's reconvene on this particular conversation. Not your calls, because I want your calls to keep coming, but this conversation for like 2 or 3 more months. I am quite sure you will get more and more of this stuff as we go on. I mean, you had Nadler the other day coming out and basically saying, Whitaker was tied into conversations about Cohen. All this stuff is happening. The one thing that they're all doing, I'm quite convinced, is trying to schedule more and more oversight hearings. I think we're going to have so many oversight hearings, John, that we're going to have to change the name of the show to the Majority Oversight Hearing Report.
Maybe not.
I appreciate the call. Well, we're working on the title, but John, I appreciate the call.
I hope you're right.
Me too.
Hope you're right,
Sam.
Bye. All right, thank you.